Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Hare Krishna. So today we don't have a presenter. So I was thinking what we can do before we start our Bhagavad Gita discussion. So let's welcome all the devotees, everyone who is participating online through Facebook and YouTube, and we welcome all of you. So today what we will do in next 10-15 minutes is a wonderful small book by Srila Prabhupada. Let me this one, The Perfection of Yoga, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So we can, this perfectly matches with whatever we are discussing in the chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita right now. So just give me a second. Okay, so let me share the book. So available online. Okay. So the first chapter in this book is Yoga as Rejected by Arjuna. And again, the name of the book is The Perfection of Yoga, the Yoga of Divine Love. So we all can read through. Very nice book. Anyone would like to start?
May I?
Yeah, sure, Uncle. Please go ahead. By the way, happy birthday to Smita auntie. Wish you a very happy Krishna conscious.
Thank you.
Hari bol.
Thank you.
So we are reading a book today, The Perfection of Yoga, and I'm reading chapter 1, Yoga as Rejected by Arjuna. There have been many yoga systems populated in the Western world, especially in this century, but none of them have actually taught the perfection of yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, teaches Arjuna directly the perfection of yoga. If we actually want to participate in the perfection of yoga system, in Bhagavad Gita, we will find the authoritative statements of the Supreme Person. It is certainly remarkable that the perfection of yoga was taught in the middle of battlefield. It was taught to Arjuna, the warrior, just before Arjuna was to engage in a fratricidal battle. Out of sentiment, Arjuna was thinking, why should I fight against my own kinsmen? That reluctance to fight was due to Arjuna's illusion, and just to rededicate that illusion, Sri Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to him. One can just imagine how little time must have elapsed while Bhagavad Gita was being spoken. All the warriors on both sides were poised to fight. So there was very little time indeed, at the utmost 1 hour. Within this 1 hour, the whole Bhagavad Gita was discussed, and Sri Krishna set forth the perfection of all yoga systems to his friend Arjuna. At the end of this great discourse, Arjuna set aside his misgivings and fought. However, within the discourse, when Arjuna heard the explanation of the meditational system of yoga, how to sit down, how to keep the body straight, how to keep the eyes half closed, and how to gaze at the tip of the nose without diverting one's attention, all these being conducted in a secluded place alone, he replied, Yo yana yogas tatyas prokta
Yoyam yogastoya proktaha
Yo yogas taya prokta
samyena madhusudanaha
Saniyena madhusudana
etasyaham na pashyami
etasya na pasyami
chanchalatvat sthitam sthiram.
chanchaladat sitam sivam. O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Bhagavad Gita 6.33. This is important. We must always remember that we are in a material circumstance wherein at every moment our mind is subject to agitation. Actually, we are not in a very comfortable situation. We are always thinking that by changing our situation, we will overcome our mental agitation. And we are always thinking that when we reach a certain point, all mental agitation will disappear. Doesn't happen that. But it is the nature of the material world that we cannot be free from the anxiety. Our dilemma is that we are always trying to make a solution to our problems, but this universe is so designed that these solutions never come. Not being a cheater, being very frank and open, Arjuna tells Krishna that the system of yoga which he has described is not possible for him to execute. In speaking to Krishna, it is significant that Arjuna addresses him as Madhusudana, indicating that the Lord is the killer of the demon Madhu. It is notable that God's names are innumerable, for he is often named according to his activities. Indeed, God has innumerable names because he has innumerable activities. We are only parts of God, and we cannot even remember how many activities we have engaged in from our childhood to the present. The eternal God is unlimited. And since his activities are also unlimited, he has unlimited names, of which Krishna is the chief. Then why is Arjuna addressing him as Madhusudana when, being Krishna's friend, he could address him directly as Krishna? The answer is that Arjuna considers his mind to be like a great demon, such as demon Madhu. If it were possible for Krishna to kill the demon called the mind, then Arjuna would be able to attain the perfection of yoga. My mind is much stronger than this demon Madhu, Arjuna is saying. Please, if you could kill him, then it would be possible for me to execute this yoga system. Even the mind of a greater man like Arjuna is always agitated, as Arjuna himself says. Can you help me, Prabhuji?
Sure, uncle. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna,
Chanchalam hi mana Krishna,
pramati balavadradham,
prabhati balavan pradhan,
tasyaham nigraham manye,
tasyaham nigraham madhye,
vayor iv sudushkaram,
vayur
iv,
iv sudushkaram,
sudushkaram. Not just
Sudushkaram.
dushkaram, it is sudushkaram.
Sudushkaram. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it seems to me more difficult than controlling the wind. Bhagavad Gita 6.34. It is indeed a fact that the mind is always telling us to go here, go there, do this, do that. It is always telling us which way to turn. Thus, the sum of substance of the yoga system is to control the agitated mind. In the meditational yoga system, the mind is controlled by focusing on the super soul. That is the whole purpose of yoga. But Arjuna says that controlling this mind is more difficult than stopping the wind from blowing. One can imagine a man stretching out his arms trying to stop a hurricane. Are we to assume that Arjuna is simply not sufficiently qualified to control his mind? The actual fact is that we cannot begin to understand the immense qualifications of Arjuna. After all, he was a personal friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the highly elevated position and is one that cannot be at all attained by one without great qualifications. In addition to this, Arjuna was renowned as a great warrior and administrator. He was such an intelligent man that he could understand Bhagavad Gita within 1 hour. Whereas at the present moment, great scholars cannot even understand it in the course of lifetime. Yet Arjuna was thinking that controlling the mind was simply not possible for him. Are we then to assume that what was impossible for Arjuna in a more advanced age is possible for us in this degenerate age? We should not for one moment think that we are in Arjuna's
Category.
category. We are 1,000 times inferior.
Yeah, so let's stop here. It's almost 8 o'clock. Thank you so much, uncle. It is so powerful, very, very powerful. And to be honest, if we can read this book, I think one can read this book in a day. Very nice book, very small book. We can really understand chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. And so Krishna is saying that, or Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that if the cause is mind, right? Like even Arjuna, it was difficult for him to control the mind. That's what Arjuna was accepting. Chanchala hi mana Krishna. My mind is so restless that it is possible for me to control the wind. Think about it. Being a great warrior, being a great Maharathi, powerful person, he could control the wind that even nobody can do in today's times. Through his power of mantras, through his power of his sadhana, his practice, he's saying, I can even control the wind, but I cannot control the mind. This is the crux of all the problems, as well as, in the progress in bhakti also comes through mind, as long as we utilize it properly. So very nice, nice book, and we will see how we can relate it to today's discussion also. And there are quite a few points there, but I think we can cover them when we will read the text, the Bhagavad Gita text. And in how much time this was spoken, Bhagavad Gita? Just in less than 1 hour.
Yeah.
Acharya says about 45 minutes, and Arjuna has understood it. He accepted it. And what was the scenario? The importance of this Bhagavad Gita even becomes more when we realize it was spoken in the middle of the battleground. The armies are ready to fight. And here Krishna is giving him the philosophy. So it's not a mundane philosophy. It's a very, very special gyan that Krishna gave, and Arjuna understood. And the scenario. So if anyone tries to minimize the importance of Bhagavad Gita, we should always remember the scenario when it was spoken. It cannot be minimized. What more important could be that two great armies were waiting. All the Maharathis, the great warriors of the whole world, not just 2 states or 2 countries, from all over the world, they are waiting for this conversation to be over, for that war. So it's a very, very important gyan that Krishna gave to Arjuna. So thank you, Uncle, again for reading through it. And from here, one of the important thing is, very interesting thing is, Arjuna is referring to Krishna as Madhusudana, the killer of demon Madhu, right? So what he is indicating here, that Lord is the killer of the demon Madhu. So there are numerous, Krishna has uncountable names. As per his activities, his qualities, which are unlimited, even Sheshanag, Anant Shesh, but Lord Balram in the form of Anant Shesh, he's singing with his unlimited hoods, unlimited mouths. He's singing the glories of Lord Krishna all the time, even right now, today. So many glories, so many pastimes, so many qualities Krishna possesses. They're ever expanding. Even Krishna doesn't. By that time, Krishna realizes how many qualities, how many pastimes, how many names he has. By that time, it even becomes more. So Krishna is ever expanding. That is the sweetness of Krishna. So as per his pastimes, as much as he has names, and one of the name is Madhusudana. And we will see in Bhagavad Gita, as per the context, Arjuna will use different names for Krishna. And that there are so many sweet bhajans, and we'll see if we have some time in that. We can sing those bhajans to see how many names, how the pastimes of Krishna, they manifest into one of the names for Krishna. Okay, so with that, let's go to our Bhagavad Gita study. We'll start with Mangalacharan. We are missing few devotees today. Beena Mataji did send a message that they are traveling this evening, so she won't be able to join. So that's fine. But it seems like we are still missing quite a few devotees. So let's start with Mangalacharan. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale स्वयं रूप
स्वयं रूप
कदामह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्
स्वपदान्तिकम्
वन्देऽहं
वन्देऽहं
श्रीगुरु
श्रीगुरु
श्रीयुतपदकमलं
श्रीयुतपदकमलं
श्रीगुरून्
श्रीगुरून्
वैष्णवांश्च
वैष्णवांश्च
श्रीरूपं
श्रीरूपं
साग्रजातं
साग्रजातं
सहगणा
सगण
रघुनाथान्वितं तं
रघुनाथान्वितं
सजीवं
सजीवं
साद्वैतं
साद्वैतं
सावधूतं
सावधूतं
परिजनसहितं
परिजनसहितं
कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम्
कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम्
श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान्
श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान्
सहगणा ललिता
सहगणललिता
श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च
श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले
भूतले
श्रीमते भक्ति
श्रीमते
वेदांत
भक्तिवेदान्त
स्वामिनिति नामिने
स्वामिने
नमस्ते
नमस्ते
सरस्वती देवे
सरस्वती देवी
गौरवाणी
वाणी
प्रचारिणे
प्रचारिणे
निर्विशेष शून्यवादी
निर्विशेषशून्यवादी
पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे
पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण
श्री कृष्ण
चैतन्य
चैतन्य
प्रभु
प्रभु
नित्यानंद
नित्यानंद
श्री
श्री
अद्वैत
अद्वैत
गदाधर
गदाधर
श्रीवासादि
श्रीवासादि
गौर
गौर भक्त
भक्त
वृंद
हरे कृष्ण
हरे
कृष्ण
कृष्ण
कृष्ण कृष्ण
कृष्ण
हरे हरे
हरे हरे
हरे
हरे
राम
राम
हरे
हरे
राम
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 हरे
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 So Hare Krishna, once again, welcome to today's program. And with the blessings of our acharyas, our spiritual masters, we'll try to understand today's verses and we'll pray that whatever we discuss today, whatever we speak, whatever we hear today, it may help us in advancing in bhakti. It may increase our love for Krishna and devotees. So let me share the verse. So last time before July, like the last program in June, we discussed up till verse 17th. So we'll start with text 18 today. Yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva vatishtate nispraha sarva kamebhyo yukta iti uchyate tada. Yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva avasthite nispraha sarva kamebhyo yukta iti uchyate tada. Anyone would like to repeat?
यदा विनियतं चित्तमात्मन्येवावतिष्ठते निःस्पृह सर्वकामेभ्यो युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा.
Anyone else? Okay. Word meanings. Yada, when, viniyatam, particularly disciplined. Chittam, the mind and its activities. Atmani, in the transcendence. Ev, certainly. Avasthite, become situated. Nispraha, devoid of desire. Serve for all kinds of kamebhya, material sense gratification. Yukta, well situated in yoga. Iti, thus, uchyate, is said to be. Tada, at the time. Translation: when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. So, what we discussed in the previous verses was that from verse number 1 to 17, the kind of things we discussed was who is advanced in yoga practices, what are the qualities of a yogi, and there were some practical tips, right? Like in the verse 16, Krishna says, Yukt ahara viharasya. One who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Very, very practical advice. By controlling how much we sleep, how much we eat, and how much we enjoy. Recreation means in this material world, and how much effort we put in our duties like work or business. By regulating all these activities, they are part of yoga system that helps us in advancing in Krishna consciousness in the spiritual life. That's a start. Without controlling, without regulating all these activities, we will hardly have any time to put in for the spiritual advancement. So many advices Krishna gave. So in this verse, Krishna is telling what is the difference between a yogi and a bhogi. So viniyatam, meaning discipline of mental activities, right? Chittam, viniyatam, chittam. So discipline, by disciplining the mind and its activities, that is one point. What happens? One becomes free from all material desires, right? Why? Because then he's not interested in worldly activities anymore. So in this world, everyone is looking for sarva kamebhyo. What does it mean? Everybody is looking for sense pleasures, satisfy their senses, their calm, their lust. That's the whole nature of this world. That's why everybody is working, everybody is in the material world I'm talking about. That's why everybody is putting so much effort in earning the money, because they want to enjoy in making the families, because again, there is a sense pleasure. So that is the nature of bhogi. What does bhogi do? He is always looking for satisfaction of the self, for his satisfaction. On the other hand, a yogi, what he is interested in? Atmani avasthite. He is always situated in his Atma. Meaning what? What is the meaning of being situated in Atma? What is the meaning of becoming soul conscious? Why, what does it mean practically? Anyone would like to try? What is that?
I'm not.
Your voice is cutting. Okay. So being situated in Atma means to satisfy. So when can we say that I am situated in my Atma? When I am serving Krishna, when I'm satisfying senses of Krishna, right? Because Krishna is spiritual. So our connection to Krishna can be made only in a spiritual way, right? So whatever we are doing right now or trying to do with this body is to spiritualize this body, to become more and more soul conscious and less body conscious, by engaging our all senses, our mind into Krishna's service. And when we say Krishna's service, means service of Krishna and devotees. Like we discussed, serving Krishna in the Vigraha form is very easy to get away with, because Krishna doesn't give the feedback to us. So that is service in a sense, but the real service is serving both Krishna, his mission, and his service and his servants, devotees. So how one serves Krishna? What is the process? Serving or engaging all our senses, including mind and intelligence also, in the service of Krishna. Just not serving blindly. We have to use our mind and intelligence. How can we serve him more? How can we know his desires even more? So we listen to kathas, we act on them. Unless we act on what we are hearing, there is no point just listening, right? The real purification of the mind happens when we start acting on the instructions that we hear in a katha, in a class. And then when mind gets purified, it will automatically control our senses and engage them into the right things, Krishna conscious things. So we are discussing about bhogi versus yogi, and it is not possible to become both yogi and bhogi at the same time, right? Sometimes we hear about, let's keep the balance, we have to be practical, but it is not possible. So it is not either a person is a bhogi or he is a yogi. Now, if I make that comment, who are we? Meaning all of us. Are we yogi or bhogi? I'm hearing some whispering, but I'm not able to hear the.
I'm bhogi.
Okay. Anyone else? Uncle is very, very honest. Ajay Prabhu, Anina Mataji, what do you think? Are we yogis or bhogis?
Bhogi.
Huh?
Bhogi.
Bhogi, okay. Anita Mataji,
Hare Krishna, I would say part-time yogis.
okay. And Subrat, he must be busy helping his uncle. Tungavidya,
Yogi.
okay. Wow, okay.
I'm bhogi.
Okay. So actually, being honest is good, but we should not be honest blindly. The fact that we are trying to practice the process of Krishna consciousness, right? Trying to associate through this program, and even at home we practice. We should consider ourselves as yogis. Now, we are not perfect. I'm talking about myself. I'm not yet perfect, but at least I can say I'm a sadhak, practicing yogi, right? Otherwise, why we have been coming together for last 8, 9, 10 years, right? Why would and that's a regular, we are associating and trying to serve together also, right? So we are practicing yogi, yet to be perfected. Now, how to understand that? Just like, let's say somebody is a drinker, right? But if a person who drinks, maybe once or twice in few years or in a year, do we really call him a drinker? It's not, I'm not promoting that, but do we really call him a drinker? Right? No, not really, right? He's not a drinker. But person who is regularly looking for pleasure, his only goal is to earn money and go to the bar and just drink all the time, we call him a drinker. Similarly, we might fall down sometimes, we might get entrapped into this material activity sometimes, but I hope so, and I'm sure about all of you, that the more that the pleasure is not there. We might see or experience some pleasure into those activities sometimes, but in the heart of our heart, we agree with the teachings of Krishna, whatever we discuss. So the point I'm trying to make is that we are yogis, the fact that we come together. So we should always have that true ego, that we are trying to understand Krishna. We are sincere about him. We are serious about him. So otherwise, if we just keep on always thinking we are bhogis, that's a good. As a devotee, we should be humble. We should always think that we are not progressing much. But at the same time, we should understand that our taste has changed over the period of time. No doubt about it. each one of us, we can look back to our taste, our interest, 8, 9, 10 years back. And today, definitely there has been some transformation in our taste. I hope everyone will agree with me. Our heart might still be weak. We might still be able to get influenced too easily, right? And that is all because of some of the association we might have, which could be voluntarily, or which could be, or sometimes we don't have any choice also, right? Association, our tendencies, our past karma, our past lives, the situation around us. So everybody's progress will be different depending on how much firm and determined we are. But definitely we are yogis, or at least practicing yogis. So I will read few things from Srila Prabhupada's lecture on this verse he gave in New York in 1966. And very, very nice points in that what is the sign that one has attained perfection in yoga? We just read almost a chapter from that book. So Lord says in this verse, Yada Viniyatam Chittam. Chittam means, Chitta means our heart, consciousness. So when this consciousness is completely under your control, so that you are not dependent on the dictations of your mind, but instead your mind is under your control. So this consciousness, right? It is not completely in our control until our mind is in our control. So a yogi, a true yogi, cannot allow his mind to wander, because if his mind will wander, it will go up and down here and there. That affects his consciousness. So when we always engage in Krishna service, here comes the practical part. When we are always engaged in Krishna's service, naturally our mind cannot go anywhere besides Krishna, right? So whatever, for example, if somebody is working for 18 hours a day, his mind will always be engaged in that work. Even after 18 hours, he will be thinking about what he has to do next. Similarly, for a yogi, for a bhakti yogi, what is the practical activity? Always, as much as possible, get engaged in Krishna's service. Then mind is automatically controlled. And we will have no desire for material sense gratification. If you are in Krishna consciousness, then you have no other desires. So one cannot be desireless, right? There will always be desires. So being desireless is not possible, but we have to transform those desires. What is the practical part of that? Seva, service. So the reason I'm emphasizing on this is, without getting engaged in some seva, some service for Krishna and devotees regularly, on the regular basis, not just on the weekends or just not in one day, it is not possible for us to progress. So what is the best service? Jiva Mukhohi? No, I forgot that verse. The meaning of that verse is chanting, japa. That is the best service, highest service, because that will bring all other services to us. So first thing we have to do is chanting the names of Krishna. That is a service. So with that, because we are asking Radharani that please give us more opportunities to serve Krishna. So if we are honest in our chanting, we are sincere in our chanting, automatically Krishna will provide, or Radharani will provide the opportunities for services. So our chanting has to be very sincere. And just chanting is not enough, but that's a start. Okay, it will bring everything else automatically to us. So we have to transfer our desires, Srila Prabhupada says, right? For example, eating. So somebody wants to eat very, very nice dishes. So what should be the solution to transform his desires? Therefore, one who prepares food stuff for Krishna must take every precaution. The desire is, when we are cooking for Krishna, the desire should be that I'm cooking it for Krishna. We say I'm going to offer, but sometimes forget desire is I will enjoy it of right. Will for me.
आपका एको
We
आता
even
है
forget the Krishna's part. Offering to Krishna becomes. Uncle, you're saying something?
आपका एको आता है जरा आपका एको आता है
Oh, okay. Is it better now? Well, now.
Yes, it's better now.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, it's better now.
Okay. Yeah. So when we're cooking for Krishna, the consciousness should be that it is for Krishna. Krishna will enjoy it, and I will just take the remnants. We should remind ourselves again and again. So that's the example Prabhupada is doing, and that will transform our desire. He doesn't take.
Your voice is cutting out a lot.
Leave everything for. Okay, let me connect to my phone.
And the screen is very blurry.
Yeah, I think we are having some problem with the internet. Am I audible now? Is it better?
Yes.
Am I still audible?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so I hope everyone heard the example that Srila Prabhupada gave about cooking. So the idea is to discipline. And how will the discipline come?
No, we didn't.
Your screen is still blurry.
Okay, I don't know because
Try
what can I
resharing.
do? That's what I
Like-
did. Let me reconnect on my computer quickly. I have to change the host. Sorry about that. And voice is still okay, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's see.
Recording in progress.
How's it now? Is it better? Screen?
Yeah, a lot better.
Okay. So the example I was reading from Srila Prabhupada was, how can we transform our desires? How can we discipline our desires? Hmm? That, for example, if somebody is fond of eating nice dishes, right? What is the what should be the consciousness when we are cooking, or that person is cooking? The consciousness should be that I am cooking for Krishna. Hmm? Even in the daily routine, sometimes we forget about it. The offering to Krishna becomes a ritual, and we think it is for me. But the idea is that it is for Krishna, and then I will just take the remnants of Krishna. So that should be our consciousness, and we should practice it. Otherwise, we'll keep forgetting about it. So when we talk about discipline, what does discipline mean? Discipline means under somebody, right? So we have to, that's why the word disciples come from discipline, right? So we have to take shelter of a spiritual master who can discipline us. On our own, it will be very, very difficult for us to follow this, the practice of discipline. Our desires will not be in control. There will be nobody to give us the feedback, whether we are on the right track or wrong track, are our desires getting transformed or not, because we will keep on making our own mental concoction, our own mental imaginations. Okay. So with that, we will move to the next verse. And next verse is about, let me, I hope it is still visible on the screen. Give me a second. So here again, in the previous verse, Srila Prabhupada says the activities of the yogi are distinguished from those of an ordinary person. In what way? That the yogi, a sadhak, bhakti yogi, will not be thinking about any material desires. He will always be thinking about how to serve Krishna and his devotees, his mission. That is a big difference. We cannot be a yogi and being engaged in material desires, in fulfilling the material desires, right? Like so-called yogis in modern times, they say they are following the path of yoga and all that. But the idea, the goal of yoga in their head is that, okay, after this yoga, I will enjoy more. My body will be more fit. I will enjoy, I will use this body for more sense enjoyment. That is not the yoga. So in the next verse, Krishna says, he gives an example. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Here Krishna is introducing mind. Like we were reading in the Perfection of Yoga, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. So it is mind that has to be controlled, that has to be tamed. Without controlling the mind, without engaging mind into right things, we cannot walk on the path of yoga or in the path of spirituality. So if the mind is controlled and focused, just like if you put lamp, let's say there is a lot of wind flowing, right? Heavy wind is flowing. Then if you put a lamp, it will disturb the lamp. It will extinguish it. Because it will waver, the lamp will waver and it will get extinguished. But if it is kept inside, it is protected inside a room, or even let's say we put a glass covering on the lamp, it will be safe, right? So what is that protection? What is that glass covering? It is how we control our mind through our sadhana. So understanding mind is very, very important. What is actually mind? A lot of people have a lot of wrong concepts, but Bhagavad Gita teaches us what exactly is mind. So in this picture, I hope everyone could see. Are you able to see the picture of the mind, body, intelligence, subtle body? Yeah,
No.
no.
We can't see anything.
It
Okay.
was visible before.
Yeah, I think my internet connection is not working fine. Is it better now? You can see the picture
Yes.
of subtle. Okay.
Yep.
So in this picture, if you see on the top, there are gross body. Our body, we are made of gross body as well as subtle body. What is gross body? Earth, water, fire, air, and ether. 5 elements mainly. And there is another body we have, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. That is called a subtle body. And then we also have soul. We don't have soul, we are soul, right? We have this body actually. So that's how we understand this position of mind, what is intelligence, what is soul. And when we leave this body, actually subtle bodies go with us. Our mind, intelligence, ego, that is carried along onto the next body, right? When we are in the cycle of this birth and death. So this mind is a very, very important factor here. So because of this mind only, because this mind gets covered with so much pollution, right? Our understanding that we are soul, it is difficult unless we purify this mind. So what is mind? Anyone knows what is mind? If we have to define mind, what is mind? Mind is nothing but a continuous flow of thoughts. It is not gross, it is subtle. It is continuous flow of thoughts. So when our senses, these gross senses, they come in contact with their objects, right? Then what happens? Then thoughts are created. And those thoughts are mind. Those thoughts, when they come together, they create mind. And although intelligence is above mind and soul is above all of them, still mind, because of our impurity, because of uh, the contact we have in this material world with the objects of sense gratification, they overpower our intelligence also. So the soul is, we as soul are always pure, never contaminated. What is contaminated is our mind and intelligence. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, is to purify this mind, and that will purify intelligence. And then when our mind and intelligence are purified, automatically our activities will become purified. For example, look at this picture. I hope the next picture is visible. Mind, this body is like a chariot. The person who is on the chariot is soul. And of course, we know in our heart, as soul, Krishna also resides as super soul, right? And this charioteer is intellect, buddhi, right? So there is a passenger, there is a charioteer, sarthi, and there is a chariot. Then if you see the reins, right, there are five horses. They show our five senses: sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, five senses. And that rope, that reins, they are tied with, by which the charioteer controls them, is mind. So think about it. If those ropes are not in control, these five senses will go in all directions. They pull us in all directions. And that's what happens in this material world. We get pulled away by our sense of hearing, taste, touch, smell, sight. They're not in control. These ropes, these reins, this mind is not in control. As soon as the charioteer, the buddhi, takes those ropes, mind into control, automatically all the five senses will come into control. So that's the logic, to control our senses. All the time we talk about controlling senses, but first we have to control our mind. Any questions? Anything? I hope it is clear. So then Krishna says in the next verse, in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. Hmm? So Krishna is telling Arjuna about the symptoms that happens when a when a sadhak becomes perfect yogi. His mind will be completely restrained from material activities. Hmm? And this perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. So actually Krishna is telling how can one make advancement in yoga. As we get more and more taste in bhakti yoga, when we serve Krishna, when we participate in festivals, when we serve devotees, the more we get taste in the service of Krishna and devotees, to that degree, our interest and happiness in this material world will go down. So it's inversely proportional. More taste in Krishna consciousness activities, less taste automatically will happen in, our taste will go down automatically in material activities. That so if you think about it, practically what happens, why our mind runs away from chanting? I'm talking about myself. Even easy to chant 16 rounds or whatever number of rounds we are chanting. Are we getting the taste in chanting? Yes or no? Any answers? We are trying, and that's a good part. But are we really getting taste? Are we really enjoying that chanting? Okay. So I will
Morning.
go ahead.
If we do in the morning, we really enjoy.
All the 16 rounds?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But most of the devotees, their complaint is we are not able to focus our mind, not getting the taste. It's hard to focus because that bliss, that anand is not yet experienced. If we are engaged in more and more service, then that anand will come. But in generally, the taste is not, if let me put it this way, if we are not getting the taste in chanting, then problem is what? Our mind is not engaged in serving Krishna and devotees. There are some obstacles. There could be some aparads. There could be some problem with the association, right? With our activities. So the point here is, once we are able to engage our senses, our mind into Krishna conscious activities more and more, automatically the taste in chanting will become more higher and our interest in material activities will become less. So if we really want to test test whether we are getting real bliss in bhakti, real anand. That is, what is the barometer? Chanting. Are we really getting taste in chanting or not? Because dancing, feasting, going to dham, the abode of Krishna, like Vrindavan or Jagannath Puri, this is all good. But even a person who is not a devotee, he gets bliss in dancing, right? In eating, in traveling to these places. We go to Vrindavan, we see a lot of people. They are just saying Radhe and Radhe. But are they really devotees? Questionable. But if we are getting the taste in chanting in our japa, then this is the sign of our progress. Otherwise, our experience of that bliss could be misleading. And this is what Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in his lectures. That's why Srila Prabhupada has always emphasized the first thing is to chant and develop our taste in chanting. So, along with whatever we are doing, right, other activities, we should make sure that we put special effort, whatever it needs to take when we are chanting with full focus. We might need association of devotees to chant. You might need some advice from devotees. How can I bring more taste in my chanting? What am I doing wrong? And that's where mentors, spiritual masters can help us. They can give us some tricks for that. So what happens once a person is perfected in sadhana, in that he gets a lot of joy, real bliss. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. What does it mean? Atmani tushyanti. Again, the same point that then the person sadhak becomes satisfied in Atma. It doesn't mean that he becomes lazy, but he becomes more and more inactive in material activities, but he becomes super active when it comes to Krishna conscious activities. It doesn't mean that somebody just go to forest and sit down and do nothing, right? Becoming satisfied means fulfilling Krishna's desires, becoming active in fulfilling Krishna's desires, and becoming inactive in fulfilling our own desires. Then what happens? Such a person gets sukham atitikam. That's the verse, part of the verse. He gets a real joy, complete bliss, which is not possible to explain. It is beyond our intelligence. How to understand that? Just like many times Srila Prabhupada has given this example, that if we want to tell somebody how Rasgulla tastes, can we explain that taste to him? No. That person will have to really eat that Rasgulla and taste it. So it's that joy, that happiness is beyond our intelligence. We have to experience it ourselves. So by practice of yoga, one becomes gradually detached from material concepts. This is the prime characteristics of the yoga principle. Now, there are a few more points that I will read from Srila Prabhupada's lecture. That when we are talking about happiness, we all know, all of us, every living entity is looking for happiness. Whether we are in the human body or any other body, every living entity is looking for happiness. But the problem is that we don't know, due to our conditioned state of mind, we don't know what is the real happiness. So that's why Krishna is giving the hint of real happiness here, right? Now, how do we feel happiness? When we perform some activities that we like through our senses, then we feel happiness, right? But so what is needed for that happiness? Some consciousness is needed. For example, let's say there is a stone right? Can a stone experience happiness? No, because it has no consciousness, no senses, no, right? For example, a living entity feels happiness according to the development of consciousness. For example, tree, they're standing at one place for many, many years. Their consciousness is low, right? So one may say, what happiness are they getting? They're standing there. From the human point of view, they're not getting any happiness. But if somebody asks the tree, that is their degree of consciousness, that is their degree of happiness. They can't think beyond that. Similarly, we might be thinking that whatever activities, material enjoyments we are doing, we are getting happiness, but because we have not experienced the higher taste. That's why. And where does that higher taste come from? Krishna conscious activities. So once we start getting more and more taste in Krishna conscious activities, automatically our interest in other activities, material activities, will go down. Very, very simple equation. For example, Srila Prabhupada gives an example. Take an example of a dead body, a dead man. The hands, the nose, the sense organs, everything else are there, but he cannot enjoy. Person is dead, all organs of the body are intact, but still he cannot enjoy. Why? Something has gone, right? The spiritual spark has gone. Therefore, the dead body has no power to enjoy. But when person becomes more intelligent and he analyzes the situation, he can understand that body was not actually enjoying. It was not that his body was enjoying, but that little spark, the soul, spirit soul was enjoying. That has now no more. So if spirit soul was enjoying, then that spirit soul should have some senses. Without senses, nobody can enjoy, right? So that's a question an intelligent person will ask. So unless the spiritual spark, soul has a body, how can he enjoy? How can soul enjoy? That requires intelligence. So what Srila Prabhupada is coming to explain here is that spiritual spark is not impersonal, meaning saying that soul has no form is not intelligent understanding. The soul is the actual person. Right now it is caged into this body, that's another situation. But in originality, we as super soul has our own spiritual form with all the senses, spiritual senses. This is a very important concept to understand. That's how when somebody goes to Krishna Lok, they can serve, right? How can they serve without any senses? So this spiritual form, this spirit does have a spiritual form. And similarly, super soul is not formless. That's how Srila Prabhupada is proving here with this idea, this logic. The super soul is not formless. Super soul Krishna has a personal form. And this just requires some intelligence. So one has to use this intelligence to understand real happiness. One who does not know what is real happiness seeks happiness in this material world. Srila Prabhupada is saying, one who does not know what is real happiness is making all this effort 24/7 to enjoy in this material world. He gives another very nice example. A man was advised by a person that if you chew sugarcane, right, ganna, it is very nice and sweet. But that friend had no experience of sugarcane. So he questioned, what is sugarcane? Then the friend said, it is just like a bamboo stick. Then that man, because he didn't know what sugarcane is, he started chewing all kinds of bamboo sticks. Then how can he get that sweetness of the sugarcane? He cannot, because his idea of sugarcane is wrong. He's trying to find pleasure in those bamboo sticks, which is not the real sugarcane. So the source of real happiness is not in the material world, it is in the spiritual world. So similarly, we are trying to experience happiness and pleasure from the material body. But there is no happiness there, no pleasure. But as we make progress and get a taste of spiritual happiness, in that proportion, we start getting higher taste, and our taste for material, happiness, it goes down. The same thing that we were discussing, that if we consider our taste now, definitely our taste in material pleasures must have go down, guaranteed, than what we had few years back. And as we make progress, as we associate more, right kind of association, right kind of, when we chant in the right mood, when we serve in the right mood, hmm, our taste will keep on increasing. Any questions so far? So I'm sure everyone or most of us know about Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahuguna. There's a story in the Bhagavatam where it's a long story how Bharat Maharaj became Jad Bharat Maharaj and how he came in contact with Maharaj Rahuguna. And then Rahuguna was in a lot of pride. If you see the left picture where um, Jad Maharaj is one of the carrier of his palki. And if you see his feet, he's trying to avoid killing any ants or insects. So what happened? The palki, it became very um, it started going up and down. So Rahuguna asked him to stop the palki, and he yelled at him. Then Jad Maharaj starts giving the instructions. It's a long section in Bhagavatam. But the main point was that Jad Maharaj instructs him that no one should neglect to control the mind. This is one of the very important activity. We need to take care of our mind. It may become our friend or it may become our enemy, depending on how we use it or how we let go of it. We should kill mental concoctions by the sword of service to the Supreme Personality of God and his devotee. And how will that happen? By surrendering to Guru, Krishna, and devotees. Brahman Brahmite Kaun Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasad Pai, Bhakti Lata Beej. If we come in contact with a spiritual master, with devotees who can connect us to Krishna, that is our biggest fortune. Nothing can be more auspicious than coming in such a contact. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brahmand Brahmite Kaun Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasad Pai, Bhakti Lata Beej. Nobody is more fortunate than such a person who gets the mercy of Guru and Krishna. And by mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru. And by mercy of Guru, we get Krishna. So the point is, we should pray for a suitable Guru that we can get in this life, who can connect us, who can create our sambandh with Krishna. And I think it's already 9 o'clock. Otherwise, we could have read this purport from Bhagavatam. Let me see if it is open. We can quickly read it. Bharat. It is Canto 5, Chapter 11. Very nice purport and translation. So basically, the essence of this verse is where Jad Bharat Maharaj is telling Rahugana Maharaj that the cause of all suffering is this mind only, nothing else. We try to blame. Some people will try to blame their parents, their friends, their teachers, the government, the planetary positions. ये ग्रह खराब है, वो नक्षत्र खराब है. But the real cause of all the suffering is our own mind, nothing else. When the living entity's mind becomes absorbed in the sense gratification of the material world, it brings about his conditioned life and suffering within the material situation. However, when the same mind becomes unattached to material enjoyment, it becomes the cause of liberation. The same mind can become the cause of liberation for us. So that is the whole idea here. And he is the same Bharat Maharaj, after whose name the name of the whole continent became Bharatvarsh. Before him, the name of the this planet was Ajnabha. And after his glories, the way he ruled over this planet and he got elevated in his spiritual life and became the greatest devotee, one of the greatest devotee, the name of the planet becomes Bharatvarsha. Okay, and then what happens once such a sadhaka is perfected and he is formed that by gaining this kind of joy, he is convinced that there is no greater gain in his life. He's never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. And this is the actual freedom from all the miseries. When we become fixed in our Krishna consciousness, in our path of Bhakti Yoga, then even whatever disturbances, whatever difficulties may come, will not be shaken. Just like Srila Haridas Thakur, he was beaten in 22 marketplaces because he was a Mohammedan and he was chanting the names of Krishna. He became a Vaishnava devotee. The local authorities, they wanted to punish him. They were asked him to, stop chanting the names of Krishna. Why you have become Vaishnava? You should follow the Muslim religion. And he denied. Instead, he said, you should all should chant my name for Krishna. So they punished him, and the king ordered, the local Mohammedan king, he ordered that he should be beaten at 22 marketplaces. That was a big punishment because even if somebody would have been beaten for 3 or 4 marketplaces, it was the end of their life. That was the kind of punishment that has. But even after getting beaten for 22 marketplaces, he was just chanting the names of Krishna. Now, of course, he was a pure devotee, but that is what Krishna is saying. Krishna is telling us the bliss of such a pure devotee, that he, in the middle of greatest difficulty, is not shaken. And when he was beaten, actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself took all the beat, all the whatever punishment was given, he was not hurt. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, in his not manifested form, unmanifested form, he covered his body, so he was saved. But the idea is that he was still very calmly chanting the names of Krishna, and he was in full bliss. So that's where a person can go up to once he is perfect in his sadhana. So I think it's about time. We'll cover. I wanted to cover verse number 24 also, but we'll take it up next week. So any comments, any questions? I hope it was not too much. The essence is Krishna is telling how to progress in bhakti. And if we see the essence of this section, it is controlling the mind. And we cannot be bhogi and yogi at the same time, but we can slowly and slowly progress by controlling our mind. And how to control? By engaging our senses more and more in Krishna conscious activities. There is no other way around. There is no shortcut. And what is the best service? First thing is chanting of Krishna's names. This is the Yuga Dharma. Rest all comes later. And as we start chanting, more and more services will come to us. And we accept them. Not that we make excuses, right? Otherwise, it's like asking Krishna, asking Radharani, give me more service. And when the service is coming, then we are making excuses, right? So if I go to some person and ask for something, and I keep on asking every day, and then when that person comes and give me that thing to me, I'm ignoring him. It's like that. So we should be open to services. We should acknowledge that, and we should try to serve. At least we should have some service, some regular service in our life for Krishna and devotees, which we can perform every day. That's the practical part of that. So I'm sure all of us are serving in some way or the other. We are all serving the Vigraha form also. In addition, we all coming together is also a service. We are encouraging, we are inspiring. So, but also we should participate more. That is also a service that we can help each other with our realizations. Whatever we are hearing or studying all week. Any challenges we can share with each other that can help each other also, because all of us face the challenges in spiritual life, no doubt about it. But when we share, then it is like focusing on chanting is very, very difficult. It's not easy. How can we inspire each other? So things like that. So that's a practical part I wanted to make there. So any comments, any questions? So yoga means to connect with Krishna, control senses, victory over senses by controlling mind. And one who is active in Krishna consciousness is the highest yogi. Param Vijate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Okay, if no questions, no comments, we can end this section here. Let me see who all is there. We can then go to the Nrsimha prayer. And also, we had the outdoor Sankirtan program last weekend. I think everyone enjoyed it, and it was very nice coming out together and doing a lot of kirtan and a lot of prasadam. So we hope to continue. Maybe we can once in a month we can start doing it. Maybe one of the Saturdays, maybe second or third Saturdays or first Saturday. Any choice anyone has? Like we will avoid the fourth Saturday because that's where the Harinam Sankirtan happens, street Sankirtan in Harrisburg by temple. But we can choose out of one first, second, or third Saturday. So instead of having our Friday program that weekend, we can just have a nice kirtan and getting together program on the outdoor or whatever works out. Any suggestions anyone has? Which Saturday we can pick? So I can put it on the calendar and then everyone knows when it will be. Any suggestions? I hope I'm audible. Is my connection still on, Surat?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Anyone has any suggestions for which Saturday we should pick for outdoor kirtan?
Maybe the second.
Okay. Any other choice?
Second is good.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So we'll pick second Saturday of the month for this, at least until we have nice weather. We can always make some adjustment based on the weather or some other changes. But in general, we will keep second Saturday of the month for this program, Sankirtan program. Okay. Anything else? Anyone would like to bring up? Okay. Govind, you would like to sing the Sima prayer?
Hare Krishna.
Sure.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Govind. Can we check with Smita aunty if she wants to sing
Oh,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
her birthday?
Also, auntie and uncle became grandparents again, right? Everyone knows that. So
Hari Bol.
congratulations again. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna aunty, wish you a very happy birthday. Would you like to sing, auntie?
उसको जरा वही बर्थडे का जरा फोन्स आते हैं, so
Okay,
she's
okay, uncle.
yeah, sorry.
Okay, uncle, no problem. Then Govind can sing on her behalf. Yeah, no problem.
Go ahead, Govind, whenever you're ready.
Namaste Narasingaya Prahlada Ladadaine Hiranyakashipu Raksham Shilatankanakalaye Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Nrsimha Bahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha Nrsimhamadim Sharanam Prapadim Tava Karagamalabhare Nakama Shingam Dalita Lihinyakashipu Tanu Vrinda Keshavadim Danarahari Rupta Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Nrsingadev Jaya Nrsingadev Nrsingadev Jaya Nrsingadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Nitya Gora Haribol 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 Nitya Gora Haribol.
Thank you, Govind. Bhakti Vignashak Lakshmi Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai. Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. So we still have about 15 minutes left. Anything anyone would like to say or add or comment? It could be related to today's topic or could be something different, not a problem. Okay, anyone would like to sing any bhajan? Maybe we can sing one very nice Vaishnav bhajan. And because we are talking about the taste in Shri Shri Kishore Kishori ji ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. The Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gurudev ki jai. Let me see if I can share that bhajan. This bhajan is with the name Keval Ashtakam and written by Neelkant Goswami, and it glorifies the Naam, the Krishna's names, Keval Ashtakam. So it says eight verses, 8 stanzas. Anyone would like to read? We all can. It's a very, very nice meaning of, and I'm sure it will inspire all of us to chant more and with more sincerity and more taste. I'll start with the first meaning. More sweet than all other sweet things, more auspicious than all other auspicious things, the greatest purifier of all purifying things. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Nothing else we need. If one is getting taste in chanting the names of Hari, names of Krishna, he can attain all perfection. Because rest all will follow automatically. All the mercy of the spiritual master, acharyas, Krishna will flow. It is so sweet. Anyone would like to read the second one?
The entire universe. You can go ahead, Ma.
Go ahead, Beta. I can read next one.
Okay. The entire universe, from exalted Brahma down to the lowly clump of grass, is a product of the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. The only thing that is reality, again I say reality, the holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
Hare Naam Ev Kevalam. Only thing is Sri Hari. It is everything. Third,
That person is a true perceptor or a true father, a true mother, and a true friend, also only if they teach one to always remember. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
yeah. So only thing we have to teach as a teacher, as a father, as a mother, or as a friend, only advice we have to give others is to chant, or to always remember names of Krishna. Fourth,
There is no certainty when the last breath will come and put an abrupt halt to all one's material plans. Therefore, it is wise to always practice chanting from very childhood. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
so true, right? Nobody knows
Mhm.
when the last breath will come to us. And all the big plans that we are making, all the dreams for ourselves, for our families, for the nations, for our companies, right? Wherever we work, our businesses, they will just come to halt in a moment, right? So what is the best thing to invest in? The thing that will give us eternal benefit. And what is that one thing? Chanting the name of Lord Hari, Shri Hari. Fifth,
Lord Hari eternally dwells in that place where truly accelerated, spiritually advanced souls sing in the mood of pure devotion. The holy name of Shri Hari alone is everything.
so even it is mentioned in Bhagavatam also. Krishna himself says, I'm not in the Vaikuntha. I'm not in Krishna Lok. I am where my devotees are singing my names and my glories. I forgot the shloka. It's a very, very beautiful shloka. So where we are singing the glories of Krishna, where we are discussing the Krishna Katha, singing his names, Krishna is there. So every morning when we are chanting, or whenever we are able to chant, we should not ignore Krishna. He is there on our tongue, around us. Krishna himself is saying that. Sixth,
Oh, what a sorrow, what a great sorrow, more painful than any other misery in the world, mistaking it as a mere piece of glass. The people have forgotten this jewel. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
yeah. Just like Dhruv Maharaj said, like when he got the darshan of Bhagwan, that I was I was praying for you. I was looking for you to give me the highest benediction. I was thinking that is to get the kingdom greater than Brahma. But now I know after having your darshan that I was looking for the pieces of glasses. Hmm? The diamond, the most precious jewel is in front of me. So Krishna, hmm, he in the form of holy name is sakshat there. We should not hanker for real darshan of Krishna. Hmm? When name has himself has taken, name has appeared as Krishna in this Kali Yuga. Krishna has appeared in two forms in this Kali Yuga. One is Srimad Bhagavatam, and second is Harinam. That is the way devotees in this Kali Yuga will get Krishna darshan. Hmm? So that's why we should always be engaged in listening, reading, or talking about Krishna Katha only, and chanting the names of Hari. Seventh,
It should be
It should
Go ahead. It should be heard again and again with one's ears. It should be uttered over and over with one's voice. It should be perpetually sung and sung anew. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
yeah, again and again, eternally. That's the only thing a devotee has to do. Eighth, last one.
It makes the entire universe seem insignificant as a blade of grass. It reigns supreme over all in a splendorous manner. It is full of eternally conscious divine ecstasy. It is supremely pure. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything.
It makes everything or anything in this world very insignificant. One who has got this name in his pocket, in his reserve, in his bank account, nothing else is significant to him. That's how precious and sweet this name is. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. And Krishna says, Mad Bhakta Yatra Gayanti Tatra Tishtamati. Tatra Tishtami. Wherever my names are sung, my glories are sung, I reside there in the heart of the devotees. So very nice. Should we sing it quickly? The whole bhajan?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Wonderful. So the tune is like this. I will try to sing and all of us can take one verse. First come, first basis. And all of us can participate in this beautiful, beautiful Keval Ashtakam. So I will try to sing it and we can follow that tune. Madhuram madhurebhyopi Mangalebhyopi Mangalam Pavanam Pavanebhyopi Harinameva Kevalam Harinameva Kevalam Harinameva Kevalam. Anyone would like to try the second one?
अब्रह्मस्तम्भपर्यन्तं सर्वं मयमयं जगत् सत्यं सत्यं पुनः सत्यं हरिनामेव केवलम्.
Hari bol, very nice, Mataji. Thank you. Third one, anyone? It's a very easy tune, very sweet.
Saguru sapita chapi samata bandhavo api sa shiksha yakshit sada smartam harinameva kevalam.
Hari bol. Fourth one.
निश्वासे नहीं विश्वासः कदा रुद्धो भविष्यति कीर्तनीयमतो बाल्यात् हरेर्नामैव केवलम्.
Hari bol. Very nice. Fifth.
हरिसादवसे तत्र यत्र भागवता जना गायन्ति भक्ति भवेना हरिनामेव केवलम्.
Jai Ho. Very nice. Next one.
अहो दुःखम महादुःखम सुखाद दुःखम तरम यतः खांचायमं विस्तुतमं रत्म हरेहर नामेव केवलम्.
Hari bol. Kachartham vishmritam ratna harer nameva kevalam. Next one. Madhu Didi, Sina Didi, would you like to try? Govind. Diyatam karno.
Niyatam vacha Giyatam nityam Harinameva kevalam.
Hari bol. Last one, first come, first basis.
तृणकृत्य जगत् सर्वं राजते सकल परम चिदानंदमयं शुद्धं हरे नामैव केवलम्.
Hari bol. Harinameva kevalam. Harinameva kevalam. Harinameva kevalam. Thank you so much for participating, and I will post this bhajan with the meaning also, the link on the group. Please read it, and it's very, very sweet and should inspire all of us to chant more and more. So thank you so much for joining today and for your association, and we will look forward to see all of you on next Friday, same time. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Happy Krishna conscious birthday, auntie, once again. Enjoy your whatever day is left.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Hare
Hari
Krishna.
bol. Hari Hari.
Thank you.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.